It seems that the American president, Donald Trump, is starting to clean out his own team. Today it became known that Donald Trump officially fired Michael Woltz from the position of National Security Advisor. He publicly announced this on his social network, Trasushel. And now the duties of the National Security Advisor will temporarily be performed by the United States Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Interestingly, Michael Woltz was still dismissed after the scandal in the Messenger, where American army strikes on Yemeni Houthis were being discussed. But this is far from everything. And following Michael Woltz, Donald Trump's special representative Steve Vitkov, who is directly negotiating with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, might also go. Trump's team is disappointed with how Vitkov is conducting these negotiations and that these talks have led nowhere. In particular, it is written that Trump's special representative sometimes even relied on Kremlin translators, which is a violation of diplomatic procedure. And there are a whole lot of complaints about Vitkov, a whole wagon and a little cart, and accordingly Vitkov might also be fired. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is May 2nd. Let's talk with you about the high-profile dismissals in the White House. So, the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, has dismissed Michael Woltz from the position of National Security Advisor. His duties will temporarily be performed by United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio. At the same time, new career opportunities are opening up for Woltz. Donald Trump wrote about this on the social network Trasushel, and now I will quote him. I am pleased to announce that I am nominating Mike Woltz for the position of the next United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Since the time he was in military uniform on the battlefield in Congress and serving as my national security advisor, Mike Woltz has worked hard to put the interests of our country first. I know that he will do the same in his new position. Well, that's now the official confirmation that Michael Woltz was simply dismissed from his position as National Security Advisor. And you can't really say that the transfer to the position of United States Ambassador to the United Nations is some kind of promotion, because usually it's a diplomatic maneuver to make the dismissal less loud and scandalous. The thing is, the figure of Michael Woltz became the center of one of the biggest scandals of the current United States presidential administration. It arose around a chat in the Signal Messenger where, in addition to high-ranking United States officials, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, was mistakenly invited. Woltz admitted to creating the chat, but stressed he didn't have Goldberg's number saved. Subsequently, it became known that the advisor had apparently accidentally saved the journalist's number under the name of one of the top White House officials. Moreover, it was reported that overall, Mike Woltz created more than 20 chats in the Messenger, including ones about the war between Russia and Ukraine. In those chats, they shared confidential information that should not be discussed in such messengers. Well, it should be noted that the use of the Signal Messenger on government devices in the United States is officially allowed, but still it cannot be used to transmit any secret or confidential information. But with Woltz, you know, he was fired, and that's that. Basically, the scandal has finally reached its climax. And despite the fact that earlier Donald Trump assured that this scandal would not affect anything at all, Mike Woltz lost his position. But it looks like he's not the only one who might leave Donald Trump's team in the near future. The next one could be the special representative of the United States President, Steve Vitkov, who directly travels and negotiates with the dictator Putin. The administration of the United States is disappointed with how the special representative of President Donald Trump for the Middle East, Steve Vitkov, is conducting negotiations with Russia. This is reported by the publication. Well, as is known, Vitkov, in addition to being Trump's special representative on Middle East issues, is also conducting direct negotiations with the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And as the publication learned from its sources, Vitkov participates in high-level meetings independently and sometimes even relies on Kremlin translators, which is a violation of established diplomatic procedure. That is, he doesn't even allow American translators, so he can be there one-on-one. During Vitkov's last meeting with Putin, which took place last Friday, Trump's special representative greeted the Kremlin dictator as an old friend. Without any signs, the usual group of advisors, experts, and military officers who typically accompany American officials during negotiations. Meanwhile, Putin was not alone at the meeting, but was accompanied by his aide Yuri Ushakov and the head of the Sovereign Fund, Kirill Dmitriev. Well, as stated by the director of the Russia program at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, John Gadi, anyone who conducts such negotiations with Putin would benefit from having experienced negotiators on their team and bringing them along to meetings in the Kremlin. A representative of the previous administration of Donald Trump also shared his opinion about Vitkov. He does not give his name but says, "Good guy, but clumsy, damn it, an idiot." He shouldn't do this himself. Well, I mean, he shouldn't go to negotiations with Putin alone. That's absolutely unacceptable. Well, at least two people should be there, him and someone else. Because when Vitkov goes alone to these negotiations, he can come out and say absolutely anything. And for some reason, we have to believe whatever Steve Vitkov says. There is no second source to confirm that this was indeed the topic of discussion. Besides, it's worth mentioning here that Steve Vitkov tried to broker a ceasefire agreement and the release of hostages between Israel and Hamas, but this attempt ultimately failed. In Israel, they point out Steve Vitkov's lack of diplomatic experience, as well as the fact that he is taking on too much. Well, as they say in Tel Aviv, quote, Steve Vitkov is dividing his time between two very important negotiations. I think he's a good guy, but the Iranian issue is so complicated that I hope he brings more people onto his team. But it turned out that he isn't bringing anyone in there. In addition, the New York Post points out that Trump has two special representatives on issues related to the Russian-Ukrainian war. Besides Vitkov, this is also handled by retired General Kit Kellogg. Initially, he served as a special representative for both Ukraine and Russia issues, later focusing solely on Ukraine matters. Steve Vitkov is specifically responsible for negotiations with Russia. And it is noted that having separate negotiators for each side turns out to be difficult to balance. As that very Gadi stated, quote, the problem with how President Trump distributed responsibilities between Vitkov and Kellogg is that Vitkov, who is closer to Trump, conveys the Kremlin's point of view to Trump, but has much less influence on Kiev's views. According to former United States Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, Trump needs to appoint a single, experienced person. Quote, if Trump finally took mediation in ending the war in Ukraine seriously, he would appoint one person to negotiate with both sides. Shuttle diplomacy and preferably someone with specific experience in diplomacy. Vitkov acts as Putin's messenger. He is not conducting any negotiations. After the last negotiations with Putin, when Vitkov returned to Washington, rumors circulated that even Trump was dissatisfied with how he conducted these negotiations. Because it's obvious that Trump's first 100 days of presidency have led to nothing. There was no peace agreement reached regarding Russia's war against Ukraine. Therefore, it seems that Steve Vitkov might follow Michael Woltz. But of course, right now no one in the White House will say that. As with Michael Woltz, no one mentioned he would be fired until the last moment. They kept saying, no, he will keep his position. He didn't keep it. I'll put an ellipsis here. Please share your thoughts and conclusions in the comments below. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and remember to like the video. That's all. Take care. Bye, everyone.